Hey guys, we got a really interesting video today. Today we're going to be talking about the equal end pattern of vintage knives. And kind of self-explanatory, maybe one of the easiest knife patterns to understand. It's kind of self-explanatory in the name. Both ends are equal on the knife, but there are some peculiarities about this pattern and some nuances, and so if you'd like to hear more about that, check out the video. Did you squirt Batman?
Yeah.
Okay, guys and gals, welcome back to the Fortified Castle. Just want to say hi to all my viewers. Bonjour, privet, guten tag, hola, and ciao to my foreign viewers. And as I mentioned before, we're going to be talking about an equal end pattern. So let's just define that now. Equal end jack are usually larger jacks, but there are smaller variations and extra large variations. An equal end jack has both ends equal, and a jackknife has one or more blades attached to one end. So this has two blades right here. This is a nice Schrade cutlery knife, the old Schrade cutlery. And so it sounds pretty simple, an explanation for that. But sometimes these knives are confused with other patterns too. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. This size right here, 3.5 to 3 5/8 inches, is usually what you're going to think about when you think about a equal end jack. Okay, but that doesn't mean you can't apply that term equal end to other knives as well. This is an extra large version. This is a Continental Knife Company. The scales have been replaced on this. But this is a large jack. It's 4 1/4 inches, single blade jack, and it is equal end. And you would call this an equal end jack. It's just an extra large one. This one right here is an equal end jack. This is a what is this? Okay, sorry about that. I had a brain freeze. This is a Canton array up. Man, I'm having trouble. Okay, it is a Canton cutlery jack. It is equal end, but this is not really an equal end jack. As you can see, it's a classic moose style knife, and so you have that large clip blade and a skinning blade. Sometimes they're man, I cannot think today. Okay, sometimes they're stay blades on here, but they're really large, and really this is a small one, 4 1/8 of an inch, and that's about the bottom line for mooses. They're usually bigger than this. And so this is a pattern in and of itself. Smaller ones like this, manufacturers used to call bullhead knives. And so you get smaller knives, maybe in the 3.5 inch range, that are equal end with two blades like this at opposite ends. And they called those bullheads. So this is not, although it is equal end, it's not really an equal end jack. You don't consider that an equal end jack. This right here is a little Boker. This is an equal end jack. It's two blades, and it's just a little smaller. It's about 3 1/4 inches right there. So it's just a little bit smaller than these right here, you can see. And that would be probably the small end of this knife pattern. If you go smaller, you're going to get into a pen knife. And we'll talk about that a little right now. So you can see this knife right here. It is equal end, but it's also opposite end. And so it's not a jack, it's a pen knife. And can't really tell. Oh, this is a Alfred Field knife. But you can see how thin it is compared to a jack, even the smaller jacks. So it's way thin, and we wouldn't consider this a jackknife, and it is equal end, but this is more, when you get into the penknife size, that we call them senators. And so a senator, that is the definition of a senator. It is an equal end knife that has opposite end blades, that's very thin, and it's a penknife. So that's a pattern that doesn't really extend over to the jackknives. And so this is a senator here. You can see it's very thin, thinner than this one. And they are equal end, but they're not equal end jacks. Here's another one. So this is one of those relief knives that they're pretty large. If you look at that in comparison, it's almost wider than your medium equal end jack, but it is equal end. But what I want you to notice about this is the widest part on this knife is in the middle, and then if you can tell, the blades, the top and bottom of the knife kind of narrow down. See how they're both narrowing into a small oval. And so this pattern is really an oval. Even though it's an equal end, it'd be better described as an oval. If you look at the difference between these two knives right here, you see how round, symmetrical this is, and how it's pretty much flat. But a lot of times on jacks, you know, there is a little bit of a curve here, but it's very, very minute. Let me see if I can show you. And so if you put a ruler up there, it just barely curves down a little bit. And I think that's why sometimes they call these equal end cigar jacks. They're basically the same thing. And so, same thing on this one. Basically, you know, they're basically flat. They curve in a little at the ends, and on top, they're flat. A little bit of a curve there. And if you do that to the oval, look how much more. It almost curves immediately from the middle. And so, these aren't really equal end jacks. Wouldn't be considered that. It's just an oval pattern. This right here is equal end, but again, it's an opposite end. It's a penknife. This is a hen and rooster right here. Hen and rooster. Really nice horn on this knife. But again, it's a really small knife. If you put it up next to the equal end jack, you see the difference. And so, another thing I want to show you is, this is a regular jack. You have a small tail, and it slowly expands out to the head of the knife here. And you can see that's what we call a regular jack right there. And you can see the difference between those two. This is probably one of the most prevalent knife designs you're going to see, a regular jack. And it's different than the equal end. Another thing is, like I mentioned before, sometimes they call these cigar jacks. I think you can call it a cigar jack, but in my experience, cigar jacks narrow a little bit on either end. They actually look like a cigar. And this is a little bulky to look like a cigar, so I wouldn't call this a cigar jack. This right here, it's another little shade. Let me show you again the difference. So it's quite a bit smaller than this, and it's smaller than the small regular jack. You can see right there. And I think you can consider this a regular jack. It's equal end. It's two blades. A knife this size is kind of right on the edge. This penknife is actually a little bit bigger, but again, the penknife is really small and the jack is a little wider. So I don't think a guy would be incorrect by calling this a equal end jack. Just probably, you know, a penknife is a better designation for this. It's just right on the edge. And that's where you're always going to have some confusion there, right on the edge of what is a penknife and what is a jack. But I think you could, this would be the smallest that you would consider a regular jack. It's really interesting if you notice and you look at penknives, you don't see a lot of these two-blade equal end designs in the penknife category. So usually they're serpentine when they have two blades. Some are peanuts. Some are just serpentine two-bladed pen knives. But you don't see too many of the equal end pen knives with two blades. I haven't seen any. This is the only one I could find in my collection right here. When you go up, okay, this is two blades right here. These actually can be single bladed. I have some examples of those. But when you go up to three blades, so this is old United States Navy knife. It has three blades. They're kind of rare, just three blades. Usually they're either two or four. And now once you go to three blades, it's a multi-blade. And most people would consider this a scout knife, utility knife, or a multi-blade knife, even though it is definitely equal end. And in fact, these equal end knives are based on the same frame as your utility knives. So is your canoe, right? So here's a canoe. You can see that they're the same size. The canoe is built off the same frame. All they did is cut down the top a little and put some hidden bolsters on here, copperhead bolsters, so that you hide the blade. And that's how they made a canoe. But this is definitely equal end. You could say that both these ends are equal, but it's not an equal end jack. It's its own pattern. It's a canoe pattern. It has its own purpose. And that's how you separate patterns a lot, is by the purpose of the knife. What were they intending when they made this knife? And so here's your four blade. Again, it's equal end, but you know, this is going to be called a scout or utility pattern because it's got four blades and it's just equal end. So this has a totally different purpose. These multi-blade knives than this knife right here. This is basically EDC. These were like camping, hunting, multi-purpose knives. And that's why they gave them a different designation. But again, they're both equal end. So I hope, as always, I think I confuse you guys more than I enlighten you. But that's the deal on your equal end jackknife. Two blades, one or two blades at the end, the tail end, equal ends. They're usually large, 3.5, 3 5/8 inches. Sometimes you find them smaller, around 3 1/4 inches, the small ones. Once you go below that, you're starting to get into penknife range. All right, I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you found it informative. And thank you so much for all the support. You guys are fantastic, as well as the other channels who help to support this too. I really appreciate the shout outs. Thanks again.